All right, good afternoon, everybody. That was a good panel. It was good to see old friends, new friends. Chris Brose and I have gone through the battles together in this town, so it's good to hear him. And I do want to say, read that book. It's really an important book. It could have been written better, but the message in that book is critical to our future as a nation. And we got you copies. They're out there for free, so pick it up. If there's one out there, you've already read it, pick it up, give it to somebody else you know will read it, because the more people that read that, the better off we are. Before I get into kind of what I want to talk about today, and that is what we're supposed to be doing in AI, what we are doing in AI, and why C3 is a little bit different, because I'm privileged to be a member of the board of C3. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the people I get to work with, both in the company and the other members of the board of directors. First thing I want to do today is just say thank you. Thank you for taking the time and coming out here to think about what we need to do, think about what we are doing, think about where we're going, and to think about how these products can make a difference in your element of the enterprise. Second piece, well, I wanted to talk about requirements real quick, because Chris and Young in particular, Young said, blowing up the JSIS process, that's a great thing. And I was the head of the JSIS process as the chairman of the Joint Requirement Oversight Committee. So I've been getting a lot of calls from members of the media, friends, et cetera. What do you think about the memo that came out that's blowing up JSIDs? And I said, actually, it's about time. Because JSIDs had become an entity on its own. You heard Chris talk about, I came over to him when he was the staff director, and I said, I read the law. One of the things I do when I take a new job is I actually read my orders. And the orders, if you're chairman of the JROC, is not JSIDs. It's the law that Congress passed that tells you what you're supposed to be doing. And so there are 5 elements on that chart. And as I sat down, the first meeting I had with the JROC after I'd read the law, I said, you understand, this is the Joint Requirements Oversight Council. This is not the Service Requirements Oversight Council. And we spend all our time in here talking about service requirements, and we spend very little time talking about joint requirements. So we said, how are we going to get after that? I said, well, I tell you what, let's write down what the joint requirements are ahead of time. And so we wrote down 4 very detailed joint requirements, one for contested logistics, one for joint command and control, one for information advantage, and one for fires. And we said, these are the things the services have to meet. If you meet these things, you never have to come back. You can build whatever you need to in your service. You go build the requirements for the next airplane, the next fighter, the next tank, the next whatever. You don't have to come back as long as you meet these requirements. And so what happened with that? Nothing changed. Nothing changed. So the only way you can actually change something is to blow it up. And that's what the Secretary of Defense just did. The only problem I had with the memo that came out is it doesn't say how are you going to meet the joint requirements. It would have been nice if he said you have to meet the 4 supporting elements of the joint warfighting construct. You have to meet these pieces. They'll have to figure out a way to do that because they do have to work together. This is a joint force that we operate in. But in order to get to the world that the last panel talked about, you have to be able to move fast, and JSID slows everything down, which was too bad because it's not meant to be that way. Finally, as I walk into this, I want everybody in the room just to take a minute and ask yourself why you're here. And I'll tell you my definition of why you should be here. You're here because our job, everybody in this room, one way or the other, whether you're a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, contractor, civilian, whoever you are part of this enterprise, your job is to make sure that no American airman, soldier, sailor, Marine, guardian ever goes into a fair fight. Ever. As long as I served, that was my goal. I never wanted to sign an order to send somebody into a combat where I know they were going into a fair fight, or God forbid, going into a fight that they were at a disadvantage of. And when it comes to AI, I can't tell you where we are with China right now, but it's really close. It's really close. And as I've spent the last 3+ years in the commercial sector, with C3AI in particular, I believe we have the right answers and the right way to do things, but we run into roadblocks with the bureaucracy about how do we implement AI You should see how fast we can implement AI in the commercial sector. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's Shell, whether it's Dow, whether it's Baker Hughes. I'll talk about those 3 companies in a little while as well, but it doesn't matter. When they come in, once they figure out something's good, they put their money down and we go. Here we do pilots over and over and over and over and over and prove it and prove it and prove it and prove it, and we can never go into production. It is unbelievably frustrating. We're going to have to fix that because we never want an American soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, guardian in a fair fight. We want to give them vastly superior capabilities, and we can do that, but only if we move quickly. So let's see what the current Deputy Secretary of Defense has said. So last time I spoke with this group, a year ago, this week, this Tuesday, a year ago, I put up the guidance from the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kath Hicks. We now have a new Deputy Secretary of Defense, Stephen Feinberg. And so he said 2 things I think are very, very important. First thing he said, read that top one. Rebuilding our military advantage demands that the DoD become an AI-first enterprise. AI-first enterprise. We are not that. We are anything but an AI-first enterprise right now. One that rapidly adopts cutting-edge commercial AI technologies. Now, he didn't underline that, I underlined that just to be clear, but those were his words, cutting-edge commercial AI technology. And I can't tell you how many places I walk in the government right now where they look at it and say, hey, large language models are everywhere. I can just go grab them from everywhere. I can go build it myself. I already have all the data. I just put a large language model against it and I'll build it myself. I hear that even with this direction from the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who this should be binding direction on everybody, so many elements of this government are still saying, I can do it myself. And I can tell you there's commercial companies that have come to us and they look at our product, and even though our product's not very expensive, their costs are going to be $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, something like that to employ our applications. They'll say, we can do it ourselves. In every case, a year, 2 years after, they're back because they can't do it themselves, which is why Secretary Feinberg says rapidly adopts cutting-edge commercial AI technology and exploits data at scale to generate operational advantage, lead the discovery of new ways to fight and win. He came out of the commercial sector. He ran businesses, he ran Cerberus. He understands the AI environment, and he understands that we do have a technical advantage in this country, and it's in the commercial sector, so you better reach out to the commercial sector and figure out how to put it in. Now the second one, that first quote was his AI direction to the Department of Defense. This second quote was in his testimony to Congress during his confirmation. So we need people within government who understand how private sector companies operate, what drives their decision making, how we can make it easier for them to develop and manufacture the weapons and equipment we need. So for the government people in here, I was one of them for 40-something years. After working in business for the last 3 years, I can tell you that we don't understand that at all. We desperately have to find out how to do business with the elements of this country who are unbelievably innovative, who have capabilities, who want to be part of this. And oh, by the way, C3 AI is part of that structure, but the government does not make it easy for us to build the capabilities we need. In fact, the government makes it unbelievably difficult. And I'll talk about some examples of the good and the bad in that as I move forward. But that's the direction that we have. We should be following that direction. So what makes C3 different? This is how I ended the discussion last September. So I thought I'd start with this discussion, because the last thing I told this audience, and it's cool because there's twice as many people here this year than last year, which is a good thing. But what I told the audience last year as I finished is that this is what I think makes C3 generative AI different. We have consistent answers. In other words, this is enterprise data. This is your data. The answer that you get will be based on your data. It'll be fully traceable because it will be sourced to your data. Actually, it will footnote. The capabilities we have will footnote, so if you don't believe the answers that come out, you can actually go dig it out of the sources all yourself. Fully traceable. And if you ask it again tomorrow, if the data didn't change, the answer will be the same. If you updated your data, the answer could be a little bit different. It's all about your data. You have full access controls with your capabilities. You control the security. Your data is your data. Your security is your security. We are adding no layers of risk as we put in our capabilities. The LLMs have an opportunity, especially when you look in the kind of ChatGPT environment, where you can leak proprietary information and never know. Because number one, it's not traceable, so you don't know where the answer came from necessarily. So it could be proprietary data that's leaked out. You have no idea of knowing that. Because this is contained data, it's your data. We don't leak the proprietary information. It doesn't hallucinate. There is no hallucination part of this. The system does not make up the answer. The system gives you the answer, sources the answer, and we don't care what LLM you use. It doesn't matter. It's agnostic to what large language model you pick. So what I said at the end of last September was, I don't care what you think about C3 AI. This should be your checklist for employing AI in the defense business or the national security business or intel business, because look at those issues and say, you know what? I don't really need consistent answers. I don't mind a little hallucination in my answers. That's just fine. No, this should be a checklist that you use to make sure that it is. And one of the reasons I chose to come to C3 is because of these issues. And I can't guarantee that answer in all of the other providers that are out there. And because I can in this, I can stand up and tell you, use this as your checklist. And if you don't like the answer, if you don't like where you're going, I think you need to talk to us, because we can give you capabilities that do that. All right. Is Nikhil in the audience by any chance? He's probably in a meeting somewhere, which is good, because he's not going to believe I'm using this chart. Because I hated this chart. You saw Tom use it this morning. This is our platform chart. This is our C3 Agentic AI platform. Nikhil loves this chart. It just drove me crazy. Because I remember the first time I saw it, Tom used it to explain what C3 was. I didn't understand anything. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Look at that. I mean, there's 1,000 words on that chart, I swear. You know, there's diagrams, there's this way, that way. But now, son of a gun, after 3 years, I put it in my own briefing. Why? Because one of the questions I kept getting from our customers, and why they would ask me this question, I don't know. But they would come to me and say, so what are you? Are you a platform company? Are you a data company? Or are you an application company? What are you? And for some reason, I had a tough time. So when I look at this chart, what I realize is that the answer to that question is yes. That is who we are. We are an enterprise AI company. And that makes us very different than others, because we provide all those capabilities. One of the magic pieces, it's all about the data, right? So we have spent an enormous amount of time working with AWS, Microsoft, Google, private clouds, edge capabilities. We've been working with government clouds all the way up to the TSSCI level, every classification level. And because we've built this data layer at the bottom, we have the ability to hook into our platform seamlessly from wherever that data is. And the cool part is that we can actually take data from AWS, from Azure, from a private cloud, and we can pull it all together. It doesn't matter to us. We create a virtual data image of whatever your data is. And the first thing I saw was the KC-135 and the PANDA application, the first time we actually did the prototype there. Heck, you think about the KC-135 data that's out there. They're a handwritten maintenance record from the 1960s. There are relational databases that were built in the 90s and 2000s. There's every kind of data that you can think of that's sitting out there that in order to effectively do it. And because the handwritten maintenance records, that was a problem, because we had to hire a couple of interns to ingest and digitize the data. But the cool part about our system with AI, you know, a maintenance technician doesn't just do one maintenance job. They do thousands. And just after a few, it's real easy for the handwriting to be understood by the machine and digitized into working together. And when the answer comes out, and it comes out that you can figure out which part's going to break across the entire AWACS fleet 90% accurate the first time out of the box, it's like, That's amazing, but that's because we built this data layer, which was enormously difficult to do. Try to think in your enterprise how you integrate disparate data. And then you have a platform. And what is in this platform? Just look across it. It's basically everything that you need in order to do the job we have. And then you have to have that platform for the applications to work. And so I shared this with Tom Siebel. I didn't share it with Nikhil or Ed because I was afraid they'd throw me out. But I'm going to give you a simple translation of this chart and why it's foolish to think that you can actually do it yourself. So, look at this as gas, this as an engine, and that as a car. That's actually not a bad analogy in my mind, because you have to have gasoline, you have to have something to power an internal combustion engine. And in an internal combustion engine, there are all kinds of parts, and just equate like LLMs here, which is one little bitty element of that entire platform that we built. Imagine that that's a carburetor. And then imagine that you're a carburetor developer and you own the carburetor and you own the carburetor design. And I understand we use fuel injectors now, but I'm old, so let's go with carburetors. So we have a carburetor there. You know what? Since I can get a carburetor for free, I'm just going to do it myself and go build a car. You can't do that. You actually have to build a production line. You have to build a production line with all the parts. You have to actually have machine shops. You have to have all the other pieces that you have to have. And that's what we built. And you know what it cost us to build that? Tom gave you an insight this morning, but it may have flown past you. It cost us billions of dollars, $2-3 billion to build that. So for somebody to walk up to you and say, I can get an LLM from a university, I can get an LLM from anybody and say, and I already owe my data, and I'll just apply the LLM to that. You'll never get there. You can try, but you won't get there. That's why you go back to the DepSecDef's direction. How do we quickly integrate commercial AI capabilities into this? That's what we have to do. So what does that turn into? People wonder why I put this chart in here. What people don't realize is we invented most of this stuff. We own the patents. So let's look at, I just picked 3 patents. We have dozens and dozens of patents. But look at the first one. Systems, methods, and devices for an enterprise AI of Internet Things platform. The interesting thing about that is, 1, we own the patent. 2, that patent was granted in 2020, which means we actually filed for that patent about 2018. Again, the company was formed in 2009. We've been doing this for 15 years. It took us forever. And the interesting thing about what Tom did, which was just genius to me, this is the genius of invention, is he actually defined AI before the compute was available to actually make it real. That's amazing. He defined what it was, he defined how to do it, and he knew the compute would come. But he did it. And so in 2020, we got the patent for enterprise AI. 2021, data processing, enterprise AI applications. We filed for the patent for the applications, and we're granted. And then 2024, what I don't think anybody realizes is that we got the agent generative AI technology granted in 24, which means we filed for it 3-4 years ago. Now, Agentic AI, all new, right? Generative AI, all the new thing. We've been doing this. We actually have the patent that is already a year and a half old, which is amazing. So you think you're going to invent it yourself. It took us 15 years, billions of dollars, and we own the patent. So I don't even want to go there. Another thing that makes us different is we have a capability called a Strategic Integrator Program, a SIP program. So why is that interesting? I think this differentiates us from our other partners as well. One of the things that we have through the SIP program is that we work with partners. And on the commercial side, we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing it with Shell, Baker Hughes, Dow, giant companies, giant American companies, giant international companies. We've been this program. And what it allows them to do is it allows them to take our platform, our basic applications and structures, and build their own capabilities on top of that. And when they're done, they still own the intellectual property of that. We don't own the intellectual property. That's theirs. That's a perfect thing to start to do with the government. So we now have partners with Fractal, SMX, and Groundswell, where we're starting the same thing, where those partners are coming up with, I'll say, modified applications based on our platform and our structure that are focused on government requirements. And they're building that capability. And the interesting thing is that they build that capability. Their unique IP is still their IP. Our IP is our IP, and we know how to build that partnership. We know how to do it legally, so we can partner and build that capability, which means we can work with almost anybody in this room if you have ideas on how to do things differently. You don't just have to say, well, that's all I can get from C3. I have an idea for this. They don't have an app for that. I'm not going to do that. Well, how about taking this app? How about taking this platform and putting your capability on top, figuring out how to do that? And the other cool thing is we'll take our engineers and help you do that. We will help you figure out how to do that. And it'll still be your intellectual property. Why do we do that? Because our success is in the commercial capabilities that we build, which are the platforms and the applications. Tom said 131 applications today. It'll probably be 132 tomorrow. And then you'll have capabilities on top that you can sell to different customers. We make money, you make money, and more importantly, we get capability to people that need it right away, faster than we can by ourselves, because we still only have a little over 1,000 employees in the company. We're not that big a company. We have just a few hundred engineers, and they're brilliant, and they're some of the best in the world. They are the best in the world when it comes to AI. But there's only so much bandwidth, so we're willing to partner on the commercial side and the government side to build that bandwidth. So let's talk about 3 capabilities you've already seen in different places today. PANDA. So Predictive Analytics and Decision Assistant. I don't know who came up with that name. Doesn't really matter. But the amazing part is it does predictive maintenance. I can't tell you, as an Air Force officer, how many senior level meetings I was in the Air Force where we were trying to figure out how to do predictive maintenance across our platforms, our fleets. And we can never get there. We spent, I guarantee you, if you added up all the money across all the platforms, billions of dollars trying to do predictive maintenance and never got there. And so the first time, it was while I was still on active duty, they did AWACS. And holy cow, $500,000, 5 people, 2 interns. The hard part was ingesting the maintenance data, 90% accurate the first time out. That's remarkable. Then, think about it, I was the STRATCOM commander, so the bombers are under my combatant command and control. They're under the Air Force's control day to day. But we had to ground the B-1 fleet because I actually couldn't be confident that the B-1 could fly anymore. We'd taken it to the desert so many times, had beaten it up, and I looked at the maintenance side and we couldn't get enough airplanes to fly. The pilots weren't, so we had to ground the fleet. We did a B-1B model or pilot with the Air Force. Again, $500,000, 6 months. When it was done, the mission ready rate for the B-1B force went from 19 aircraft available every day to 24 every day. That's real combat capability just by doing maintenance the right way. So since then, we've done pilots on the B-2, the B-52, the KC-135, C-5, C-130, A-10s, RC-135, C-17s, H-860s, ICBMs, RJs, CV-22s. So, and I tell you, I love the fact that there's a rapid sustainability office in the Air Force, and I love the fact that those guys took this on, and I love the fact that they did it. It's remarkable. But why the heck do you have to do 20 pilots? You think after the AWACS and the B-1B, they said, holy cow, this works. Let's go. No, let's do another pilot. Well, that one worked too. Let's do this one. No, let's do another one. 20 pilots. And now it's being used day to day in 5 of them. And General C.Q. Brown was Chief of the Air Force, made it the system of record for the Air Force in 2023. And we're still arguing about how we go to production with this capability. And I can't blame the RSO. I can't, everybody is trying to do the right thing, but we have a structure that makes it unbelievably difficult, which is why eventually you had to blow up JSIDs, and eventually you have to blow up some of the acquisition process that's in the 5000 series regs. And you have to just go do things, especially when they've proven themselves and they work. But this is working, it's good. We're still under contract. It's just going way too slow to make me happy. PLUTO, another great acronym, Petroleum, Logistics, Utilization, Tool, and Optimization. So let me ask you a question. For the, for a former Stratcom Strategic Command Commander, the mission to attack Iran was pretty remarkable. 7 B-2s, tanker support, flying halfway around the world, coming in at night, radio silence most of the time, and delivering massive orbital ordnance penetrators on targets and hitting every target exactly right. We can talk about the impact long-term, the impact short-term, talk about all the political things, but we're given that mission in the Air Force and accomplished it perfect. So just the 7 B-2s, how many gallons of gas, how many pounds of fuel do you think we used on that mission? Just that one mission, for just the B-2s. 200,000 gallons of gas. Over 2 million pounds of fuel. That had to be flown all the way around the world, meet up in the strange place over the Atlantic Ocean, dropped off. 2 million pounds of fuel is not a trivial matter to move around. Everybody thinks about the B-2, thinks about the stealth, thinks about that giant bomb that dropped. But think about moving 2 million pounds of fuel for one singular mission, and now think about a full-up war with a China or a Russia. Oh my gosh. Our logistics capability will collapse, literally collapse, and it would be a disaster. But now we have a capability with DLA. We're working with Transcom, working with others. We're using the unified data model, which is interesting. It gives operational visibility to commanders about where everything is in 600 fuel locations across the country, around the world. It allows you to do what-if scenarios. What if this capability goes away? It starts getting into the contested logistics problem. So what if this site gets blown up? Where do I get my gas for this? Because we have to keep fighting, and we're going to be against somebody who's trying to take away our logistics. So General Simmerly, the DLA commander, said we need to figure out how to do this better. And so that's what we're doing as we go through the prototype. And I can tell you, we're committed. It is working, and it's going to continue to work. But then, how do we make it real? Because what service owns joint logistics? Because the services buy everything. Holy cow, that's a significant problem. But General Simmerly, he's convinced he's going to figure out how to do that. He's got a team of people that are all in. But once again, we have to be able to do this because they can't do it themselves. They will fail. And then Guru. You heard Will Haskell up here a while ago, a hero of mine, a master sergeant in the United States Air Force. A master sergeant who realized that the way we do intelligence is just so inefficient. And I saw that when I was deployed and I was responsible for integrated intelligence products. It was a manual process where I had to reach into the imagery side, then I had to reach into the SIGINT side, then I had to reach in the imagery side to the U2 side, then I had to reach into the space-based side, then I had to reach into the tactical imagery off UAVs. I had to reach, and then I had to manually put it all together for a product to create a mission package for and Will Haskell, a master sergeant, looks at it and said, we could just ask a computer to do that for us. But we have to have an AI engine to run it. Because if I ask, bring me everything on, target grid BCD, and you don't know how to translate that, you're going to do it all manually. So he built that, and he's been working at it for at least 2 years, probably 3 years, maybe 4. He's just after it. He won't let it go. And he's just annoying to people. And people are finally saying, all right, let's go do that. But the reason I really believe in this product is if you think about what I just described, more operation available aircraft, gas and fuel available whenever you need it, integrated intel that tells you exactly where the target is going to be and exactly where to go. You put that all together, now you have an airplane, you have munitions, you have fuel, and you have the intel to support a mission, and you can do it just like that. Now you've got something that really is a huge advantage for the United States that makes sure that no airman, soldier, sailor, Marine from this country ever goes into a fair fight. But that's what you have to do. And we have to do it fast. And we're doing as fast as we can, but we're still going too slow. So here are our customers. What I'd like to see is that chart grow by 3 next year, and then by 3 the following year. And it can. So for our customers that are here, just like Tom Siegel said this morning, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for allowing us to be your partner. Thanks for trusting our technology. You heard the trust piece in the last panel. That's critically important. I know that Stephen and Tom and the entire board of directors and every member of this company are committed that if we're your customer, we're going to figure out how to make it work. If it's not, call me, call Stephen, call Tom, and we'll make it work. I guarantee it. But thank you for what you do. And it's really a great piece of my life now to be involved in artificial intelligence in a company that I believe does it the right way. So thank you very much.